Let's Get To presents Go Astros, a focus on H-Town hardball.
And welcome to Go Astros. I'm James Christopher. Andy Tom Chesson is here. Brian Arbor is here. You know, guys, we were really good to George Springer for his time here. Can he please show us on the doll where we hurt him? Because, boy, he really beat us single-handedly this weekend. Brian?
I believe it's in the wallet and from Jim Crane.
So there's this, I keep forgetting, yeah. That was the big conjecture last night, was he never wanted to be with the Astros because of the scandal. I was like, this is not about the scandal. He didn't want to leave because, right, Andy, service time manipulation was.
It was always this pipe dream that we were going to smooth things over, but he was remarkably upset when his service time was manipulated at the beginning of his career and his call-up was delayed because every sign indicated that he was ready. The Astros, I think, even indicated that he was ready, but Jeff Luhnow said, no, you're not quite ready yet because hold on, got to get to that date. Now you're ready. And it cost him money. And that's, you know, when you hit your free agent year at 31, which I think is where he hit it, that's a big deal. Siri is now talking to me, listening to our conversation. We have one viewer. It's Siri. But that's the issue, right? So he carried that with him. He carried the grudge. The other piece of it is the why Toronto. He grew up near Baltimore in upstate New York, and he's right there. It was really easy for his parents to cross the border for a game this year and see him. Didn't work out so well last year because of COVID and everything, but this was a big move to not get away from the Astros, but to go someplace where he felt appreciated and he's close to family where he grew up.
Yeah, and I don't have Brian. We'll let you weigh in on that, but the funny part is and Andy, you know this. One of my very best friends is from Toronto. I sort of tacitly root for the Blue Jays for him. I think they're a fun team to watch. They remind me of a certain team from a few years ago. But Brian, what were your thoughts on all of that?
Yeah, the Astros, if I recall correctly, in the 2020-21 offseason, made little attempt to re-sign George Springer. One reason is, as Andy said, he was 30. He was entering his age 31 season. Ball players usually peak around 27, so may not be which one. He was so injured last year that the Jays didn't get a value last year on him. Looks like they may get one on him this year. And at the time, you know, my mental thought was, well, they're saving their money. They're saving their cap space to sign Carlos Correa. So that didn't work out either. So, you know, we can reevaluate sort of what they were thinking in 2020, 2021. But yeah, I mean, I think that's part of why there's very few hard feelings about George Springer. He didn't turn the Astros down. The Astros turned him down. And I guess we have some hard feelings right now because, well, he had some hard contact this weekend, both with the ball and then with the ground on that diving catch.
Oh, the catch.
Yeah, well, I mean, the truth's in the middle there, too. I think you don't make an offer to some guy who tells you, I'm not going to accept your offer.
Yeah.
So it's not, you know, I would like to date you. I am not going to date you. I'm not going to try to date you anymore. That's basically what the relationship was.
You can't fire me, I quit.
Yeah, I don't think there's any animosity on Springer's part against the Astros. I think he genuinely enjoyed his time here on the field. I think he enjoyed playing with the guys he played with. He was ready to move on. He moved on. I do like the fact that you put it in your mind that they were saving money for Correa, because no place did they actually say that's what they were doing. There was just a whole bunch of fans going, well, I guess if we're not allowed to be upset about that, we're going to put that positive energy over here and hope it works out, which was never really the case, evidently.
Apparently not. It was fun, though. And you know, we'll get into the series in a minute. But it was fun. Like, there was a moment where, you know, Bregman robs him of a double and he gets to first, and you can see him kind of, I think he really did enjoy playing here. I think the fans were really good to him. I mean, the fans were better to him than they were to Correa. Let's not forget, a lot of people wanted to trade Correa 3 years ago, but you know, it was fun. But look, Brian, you wrote about this, so I want to start with you. The Astros and the Blue Jays played 6 times. The Astros actually outscored them for the series, lost 4 of the 2 games, the rest of them by 1 run. What did you take away from this particular series?
Yeah, I think there are two major thoughts here, and this is trying to express it. I'm at orangefire.substack.com for those who want to read my thoughts in more detail. But one, the Astros played the Blue Jays evenly throughout the 6 games they played them last weekend and this weekend. They outscored them by 1 run. So yay, but also indicates it was even. And it just said 5 one-run games. The Blue Jays won 4 of them. 1-run games are mostly luck. Blue Jays have a good bullpen and a good closer where they got to them in the one-run game. The Astros won the Jeremy Pena game, but it's mostly they played them evenly. The Blue Jays look like a pretty good team. If the Astros can play them evenly, that indicates the Astros are a pretty good team, which is I think the expectation we have sort of walking in. My more sort of negative thought though on the 6 games is the offense. Every game they won the 2 games in which they scored a bunch of runs. They scored 8 runs, 6 in regulation in the win last Sunday, and they scored 11 on Friday night in Toronto. And the rest of them they scored is like 1, 2, and 3 runs in each of those games. The offense seems to have taken a step back. There are 2 reasons for that. One is they're just underperforming both in terms of sort of historical expectations and in terms of the batted ball data. And we got to see some of that, particularly on Friday night, that, hey, they're still, a pretty good offensive team, but they have taken a clear sort of step back from the team last season. And there's some signs that that's improving, but it's not going to be, I don't think they're going to lead the American League in runs again this year. And that's not a weakness we can keep looking at throughout the season.
Andy, though, how much of it is just that the team top to bottom isn't as deep as it's been? Is that part of it?
We're not going to get into the conversation of batting order because we have opposite stances on that. The fact that you're rolling out Nico Goodrum 2 out of 3 days is not a good sign for your offense. He is not a good offensive player. He has never been a good offensive player. He was not signed to be an offensive player or traded for, I forget which, because that was a few months ago now. So the fact that he's playing a lot means that something hasn't gone right. And mostly what hasn't gone right is that we'd have an injury to Jose Altuve. But beyond the injury to Jose Altuve, you've had a lot of lineup shuffling. Alvarez has missed time because of health and safety. Brantley has missed time because of health and safety. You've had really no consistency. And I think the opening day lineup has only been used 3 times so far in 22 games. That's part of baseball, is that you establish a pattern and you get into that idea of knowing what the guy behind you is going to do and what you're expected to do. And I think there's a lot of reaching for that. We can argue all day about whether they should still be reaching with the level of veterans that they have on the team, but the fact is they are. We are actually outperforming our Pythagorean theorem right now because we are -4 in run differential, but we're still a 500 team. As far as the Blue Jays, I think we're close. I think that the Astros are going to have to find some offense from somewhere. And I think some of that absolutely is the guys that are underperforming will start performing better at some point during the year and for consistent periods of time. They have a history of doing that. None of them are remarkably of an age where, except for Michael Brantley, where you'd expect a steep drop off. So it's still early, I guess, there's a long way to get to. It's still early. We're still feeling some things out. Getting Altuve back tonight, assuming the medical staff isn't lying about his injury like they've been lying about our closer's injury. That's going to go a long way towards solidifying some things. Getting Nico Goodrum out of the lineup is the immediate benefit of that. You've also got a lot of pressure on a guy that's a shortstop who's performing well, but starting to regress a little bit because guys are figuring out, well, we throw him breaking balls, he can't hit them. Not yet anyway. There's just.
And that's very much what you see out of a rookie hitter, right, Brian? Like he's going to come out and do a thing, and then they're going to adapt, and then he'll adapt to what they're adapting to. And that's what's going to happen.
And by no means am I blaming anything that's going on in Jeremy Pena.
Oh, absolutely.
That's not where I'm coming from, but there's just a lot going on right now.
I think WAR is the dumbest stat in baseball, but isn't he leading the team in WAR?
Yes, and he's exceeding our expectations even with this issue. The area he's doing worst in, if you look at his StatCast page, is on chase rate and whiff rate. He's, as Andy said, quite willing to swing at breaking balls out of the strike zone. I guess the comp for him may be Javier Baez in the, optimistic scenario, but he's been playing mostly in the optimistic scenario. When he hits the ball hard, but making contact, and he fields great. But when he makes contact, I know he hit the home run off Romano last weekend, but I was like, he's just going to throw him sliders and he's just going to swing and miss by, half a foot. And that's kind of what happened in the ninth yesterday. And
yeah, what we saw yesterday.
Yeah. And, wasn't surprising in that sense. And, Romano may never, if they see each other in the playoffs, Romano's never going to throw him a fastball, but, he's got, 5 months to adjust. By then he'll sort of continue to do that. One sort of note on Jeremy Pena is, if you look at his minor league numbers, his walk rate went down and his strikeout rate went up when he got to AAA, but his power went up, and he seems to have made an adjustment to sell out more for power. He certainly has reshaped his body. He's been in the weight room a lot since he left University of Maine, and I think that's been mostly to his benefit, but the swing and miss is something that comes along with that, and something we'll have to live with.
I still contend, it's May 2nd, that it's not even time to start like looking at negative trends or positive trends. There were people down on Kyle Tucker. He's raised his average by like 100 points. And just since our last episode, actually, like that's kind of it. I guess my big thing, and I'll start with you on this, Andy, we saw a different Phil Maton in the playoffs last year than I think we were expecting. We haven't quite seen that guy this year. What is your overall take on him? Because he's already becoming the sort of Luke Gregerson of this team to Astros Twitter, which I know.
Wow.
I wanted the Luke Gregerson reference. We've gone all year without having one. I just need one.
Will he be signing autographs at the shed later?
I hope so.
Because that was pretty much the sign in the early 2000s that you were about to be cut if you were signing autographs in the shed.
Yeah.
The bullpen's an issue. I think so. Let's talk about some positive things. I know we want to get to talk about Phil. Our starting pitching has been very good, especially this last week. But it is the strength of the team right now, even knowing that we're going to roll out Odorizzi tonight, and hopefully he can duplicate what he did on his last start and not what he did on his last start before that. But that's the strength of the team. The bullpen's iffy. And with Phil Maton, the reason he was available last year was because it's kind of a crapshoot when you're talking about bullpen guys. He wasn't great before he came to the Astros. He had some tools that they thought they could work with, and they managed to get him there by the playoffs. This year, maybe he's regressed back to what he normally is. Maybe it's a bad month. Maybe it's a bad week. I think it's still too early to say he's not a valuable contributing piece of the bullpen. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things in the sample size of 22 games that would be a cause for concern if you're projecting them over the course of a season. I'm not worried about him yet. Am I as confident about him coming in? No, but I wasn't in the playoffs last year until he proved he could do it. Because last year, when he started appearing in the playoffs, we're like, I guess we don't have anybody else, and it just worked out.
Yeah.
And I think one of the things that Click has done, when we're talking about later in the season, he can build a bullpen, and bullpens are notoriously easy to improve over the course of a season with the right moves. So do I worry about it? Yes. Is he the reason that we're 500 right now? Absolutely not.
No, I mean, we haven't hit the baseball. That's why
that's ultimately the issue.
Yeah. Brian, what about you? I mean, I actually think the bullpen's done a pretty good job. I mean, I think Monteiro has surprised. I think it was Neris is like the signing of the offseason, right? Just seems like maybe Phil's off his game a little.
Yeah, his strikeout rate is lower than we've seen before in his career, so that'll probably normalize some. But he gave up that hard single to Santiago Espinal yesterday on a fastball up in the zone that didn't have his usual ride on it, and so something to worry about. But you're absolutely right. Rafael Monteiro, who seemed to me just to throw in for salary purposes when they got him in the Graveman for Toro trade, has been fabulous. Hector Neris has been, really good. Both of them, I should note, are throwing their fastball a lot more with the Astros than they have historically. They both have increased their fastball rate this year. So has Odorizzi. But those two in particular, particularly Monteiro, has gotten much better results on his fastball. And you saw some of that in his save against the Rangers, where he just was, I'm just gonna throw my fastball and dare you to hit it. And, you got a walk and a single out of it, but nothing else. He was able to get the save. Again, he's been really good. I think it's 1 run over 9 and change so far, maybe 10 innings and change so far. So much better expected. Neris has again been really good. And, if we get Ryan Presley, who's our best closer, best reliever back at some point.
And healthy.
Yeah. And who knows when that's going to be, because, again, as sort of Andy hinted at, they made it sound like it'd be a small thing, and it has not been a small thing.
I don't even think they made it sound like they actually said, "Oh no, he'll be back as soon as he's
ready,
as soon as he's eligible to come back." That's not even a problem, and that was a week and a half ago now.
Yeah, they blatantly said that it wasn't a hitting around situation.
That's why when I talk about Jose Altuve, when I see him on the field tonight, then I'll be comfortable with their decision. But until then, I don't really believe them.
Yeah,
they've done nothing to earn that trust, which is just being an Astros fan for the last 10 years. That's what you've gotten. It's a medical staff that doesn't know how to communicate.
I did love that Jose Altuve got 2 singles on 2 pitches when he was playing in Oklahoma City for the Sugarland Space Cowboys. I thought that was a nice sign. It's interesting because this road trip, I think any other part of a season, you take it. You won the road trip. You beat the team you were supposed to beat. And then to Brian's point earlier, you went toe-to-toe with what I think is the best team in the American League right now, and you came out respectable. But, of course, it's not in the middle of the season. It's immediately after a struggling homestand. So hopefully things can get turned around again starting tonight.
Yeah, and I should note they're 12-12. This isn't a disastrous start. Their playoff odds, I was looking at it on Fangraphs this morning, have shifted almost none at all in the front part of the season. Obviously, the
playoff odds haven't. The division odds certainly have.
Yes, the Angels have come up because the Angels have played well. But if the Angels keep up this pace, how many times have the Angels had a good month and you'd be going like, oh yeah, the Angels have a lot of really good players. They should get to the playoffs this year. And when they go 78 and 82, we'll remember that. The Angels are, I believe it when I see it, team.
Yeah, absolutely.
Same as Jose Altuve, same as an Astros injury.
Andy?
Well, to that point, though, that part of your 12-12, 11-11, whatever our record in our 500 record, we've had a healthy diet of an Angels team that's been playing well, a Mariners team that's been playing well, the Blue Jays for 6. The only easy team we've played against has been the Rangers, and we beat them 3-1. At some point, the schedule does balance out a little bit, where we're not playing. To me, the Blue Jays are the cream of the American League, and I know Yankees fans don't want to hear that right now because they're having their moment. We're hitting a lot of home runs, and we forget that we hated that all we did was hit home runs last year. I actually think the Yankees have gotten better with Kiner Falefa being a contact guy and getting on base more and doing some things that look like real baseball versus just let's hit some home runs. That's not what we're talking about today. But we've had what I would consider a difficult beginning schedule. We went 500 against it. It's not the worst scenario in the world. Would you like to be, a few games better on the ledger? Absolutely. But I think they're close. I think you get Altuve back, you start getting some consistency in the lineup. Bregman is historically a slow starter. I know he had a good first series, but he is historically a slow starter in the season. Tucker is historically a slow starter in the season. Alvarez is starting to hit. But I can tell you the stat that I saw yesterday, and I'm not the stat guy, that told me everything I needed to know about what was going on with the Astros. Alvarez and Tucker are both really, really hot right now. Alvarez has 6 RBI in that time period, even though he's got like a 1,400 OPS. So he's hitting the ball, he's mashing the ball, but there's nobody on base in front of him. Tucker, in the meantime, has 11 RBI at the same time period. It's just there's not enough.
He's driving in Alvarez.
Yeah, there's not enough traffic. That's what it is. There's not enough traffic on the bases for the Astros to score runs the way we're used to seeing them score runs. At some point, that has to get fixed. And whether that's through players just performing better or adjustments to the lineup or adjustments to the roster, that's to be determined. But I don't think they're things are not as dire as Astros Twitter would have you believe right now.
I do wish that Jose Siri would not be like, I felt like at one point this weekend, he made a point of just catching a fly ball here. Like he was showing off. And I'm just like, dude, catch the ball. This isn't, none of that Olay shit or whatever.
Did he run into anybody?
He did not run into anybody.
It's a positive weekend for him.
It really is.
I would accept Jose Siri olaying the ball if he didn't strike out 35% of the time.
Yeah, I mean, I do wonder if he's going to end up being a detriment this season, because he seems to have naked pictures of Dusty Baker's wife, and that's the only logical explanation for his constant presence in the lineup.
The long term, I mean, so part of his presence in the lineup this weekend is that Brantley was out with health and safety protocols after hugging George Springer,
hanging out in the dugout.
Yeah, it was, I saw that on Friday, like, oh, what a lovely picture. And then they announced it like, none of us should have to, but he never went on the IL. So maybe he just had he just had a cold. Again, lack of clarity is, to be expected at this point, or a decade ago from the Astros medical staff. And I guess it seems to me Siri's the guy who will move back to the minor leagues when Jake Myers gets called up. But when Jake Myers is healthy, apparently he's doing a little bit more activity, and James Click said they've looked at the schedule of the complex league. So he's somewhere near actually playing baseball, but that's still 3 or 4 weeks away, most likely, in probably the best case scenarios.
Before I look at the schedule coming up, Andy, were we shocked? I mean, we weren't on this show, but Javier looked great as a starter his past start.
Yeah, I don't think there's any reason to be shocked. Christian Javier's issue so far as a major leaguer is that he walks a lot of guys, and it is pronounced when you are a bullpen guy, when you're walking a lot of guys, when you're pitching 5-6 innings a game. It's not as bad a deal, even though his rate wasn't appreciably better as a starter, putting players on base. I think he's a guy that if Odorizzi had never been acquired, and we're not questioning the Odorizzi, I understand why we picked up Jake Odorizzi. He's a guy that you could have left in the rotation, and he could have filled in for Fromber for the month that he was out, and it would have been okay. Christian Javier, I think, is a guy that's going to be a highlight for the Astros this season. Remains to be seen how they're going to use him. And I think part of the reason that he had a kind of a step back last year is because Dusty Baker didn't seem to understand how to use him. You can't have a long reliever who doesn't throw long relief. And so when you throw him for the 3 batter minimum and yank him out as soon as you can, and then expect him to go 3 or 4 the next game, it doesn't work that way. And so I don't think he ever got a fair shake. And he performed well enough in 2020 to earn that shake.
Well, he was like a top 3 in Rookie of the Year voting, right, Brian? Like, there was no fluke to this guy.
Yeah. No, I mean, the issue with Javier has been control, and also that he seems to have, he has a fastball with that invisible that goes to the top of the strike zone that people can't pick up, and a slider. And then he's continued to be working on his other pitches, but not with a lot of confidence. But Andy's absolutely right. His control has been his biggest issue in his major league career, and it's been really good so far this year. So if he is improved in his control, there seems to be some evidence in the StatCast data that his stuff has improved. Some of that's being in the bullpen, but he's been in long relief this year, so he's not quite the 3, it's not quite the 3 innings, max it all out guy. There's some evidence his stuff has improved, and that would be, he can make a big contribution to the rotation.
Well, we talked about the schedule, and coming up, just looking at the 538 projections, the Astros are actually projected to win every single game between now and May 15th, save one. The May 10th game against the Twins is seen as a toss-up. I mean, is this where, it's like I'm not even going to ask the question, because no, this series against Seattle isn't really that important yet because it's still April or May. But this is where we should start to see, hopefully, a couple put some wins together.
But yeah, the Mariners are a game better than the Astros right now in the standings. The Mariners have not done a whole lot that's super impressive. I mean, they're ahead of the Astros, but that's not saying a whole lot. The Astros should win this series. And I hate saying it's not a prediction. They just should. They're at home. The Mariners don't play as well on the road. Mariners have a bunch of young guys who are still figuring things out. The be all end all of baseball, Jose Rodriguez, has not been as promised yet. Jared Kelenic still is struggling with the strike zone a little bit. So the pieces that the Mariners have in place, which are good pieces, still aren't leading them into a championship level of play quite yet. So the Astros you should see the schedule start to break a little bit in the Astros' favor. We've also played an inordinate amount of road games, it feels like. I'm not looking at the schedule right now, but I think it's something like 16 of the first 22 games.
That's correct.
Have been on the road. That's not great, but the Astros still seem to have a winning record on the road and still have struggled at home, which is par for the course for Houston. So hopefully, those things start to average out a little bit. We get a few more home games, a little bit more home cooking, whatever that's worth, and a healthy Jose Altuve come back and start scoring a consistent amount of runs, because I think our starting pitching is holding up their end of the bargain. Really, our pitching staff as a whole, just some things concern me. Maton concerns me. Ryan Stanek hasn't looked as sharp as he did last year. And those are two guys we were counting on. But if Neris fills one of those spots neatly, then I don't know that I care all that much if Ryan Stanek is as effective as he was, or Phil Maton is as effective as he was.
Brian, any thoughts on the sort of couple of weeks ahead?
Yeah, I mean, they have the Tigers coming up, who's a team that's been struggling so far this season. They've got 4 games against them starting on Thursday. So again, that's an opportunity to finally have the schedule move away from the playoff contenders.
Hopefully the AJ Hinch going back to Houston mojo is gone, because didn't they sweep us at home last year?
That was an awful series here last year, including that's when so many guys, I think the last game of that series is when a bunch of guys went out for health and safety protocols, which again is a reminder that last April didn't go great either. And we forgot about that by September. So, fingers crossed for a repeat performance this year. In fact, this year. And so, again, as Andy says, the offense needs to come around, and that's the big thing to watch for is can they score more than 3 runs a game against the Mariners and the Tigers? They should be able to do that.
Is there any chance, before we move on from the Tigers, that we can fool Nico Goodrum and just going in the wrong locker room and traveling back to Detroit with them?
Oh, I hate the fact, and it's the worst part is he's like, the very fact that he got credit for a double in that game yesterday, when you could have made the argument that it was an error. I mean, really, just cracks me up.
You're going to go see Braxton play at some point. You're going to get some video. He's going to end up on second base, and you're going to call it a double because that's what you did.
I guess that's what you do. All right, guys, we will be back next week. Hopefully, we'll be covering. It'll be the first Astros off day that they've had in a while next Monday. So we'll talk about the week ahead. Till then, go Stros.
Go Stros.
Go Stros.
Go Astros is a presentation from Twitchy Dolphin Media and part of the Let's Get To Baseball Network.